Well, there's been continuous debates on how to grow the South African economy. How does government and business work together to ensure that reindustrialization pushes productivity and creates employment? Well, Managing Director for Emerging Markets in Africa at Deloitte, Martyn Davies, joins us now. Martyn, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Siki.
Today, it's a good time to have this conversation, given those dreary first quarter GDP numbers out yesterday.
They were pretty depressing, to say the least, a 2.2% contraction according to last quarter, and South African economy needs growth. We also have to consider, I think, and I often look at the demographic growth trend, told 1.6, 1.7%.
Yeah.
So in real terms, our starting point is that figure, because if you're growing at less than your population growth on a per capita basis, effectively you're becoming poorer.
Are we diagnosing the problems right, though? Because we keep talking about the need for really a rethink of the structural makeup of our economy, but we've been having this conversation.
Well, the word structural, Siki, means so many different things to different people. I would say structural is maybe two things. Structural is a synonym for sensible. Think structural reform, sensible reform.
Yeah.
And secondly, structural means politically difficult to do. Ultimately, and we talk about state enterprises and governance enhancement, which is happening now. Our Minister of Public Enterprises, Pravin Gordhan, is doing a fantastic job in terms of stabilising. But beyond the stabilisation, instilling a new culture of governance. But ultimately, I think it has to be privatisation. There has to be some sort of partial privatisation, overcome our ideological mindset to this word. Interesting came out in Ethiopia.
Yeah.
They were looking to privatise en masse leading SOEs, and this is a country which not too long under Mengistu made arguably the Soviet Union look quite market liberal. So if they can do it, why can't we?
In this country, though, we've had business and government at loggerheads for quite some time. We even coined the term a trust deficit between the two. I imagine that if we're going to make those tough decisions, then there needs to be a coming together.
Well, Siki, looking at your previous clip, I mean, we're doing anything but coming together. All stakeholders, elected or self-appointed or somewhere in between, seem to want their own agenda, no matter what the cost. And that's unacceptable. We have to realize, finally, we are trying to build a nation here. And I often say, you talk about a failed nation, and I'll talk to you about a failed state. We need to have a sense of togetherness as South Africans. And we launched at Deloitte recently a Gearing for Growth series, a series of seminars. Today we had one, we spoke about it earlier, is the elusive trinity of reindustrialization, employment and productivity.
Yeah.
Typically you can have two of the three, but it's very hard to have industrialization, employment and productivity together.
Yeah.
And this is what we seek. And I think the conclusion ultimately being is maybe industrialization, yes, we can do some things to support it, perhaps more on the value add side, but perhaps that horse is bolted in the future services. That came out very strongly today in our conversations.
And let's talk a bit about reindustrialization. What would we need to do there? We sit with an industrial policy action plan that is housed within the DTI. Within that, they're talking about creating black industrialists, but how do you support a reindustrialization?
Well, I think we all naturally default to think this is what we need, and we're in a quite almost unique position. We don't seek to industrialize as South Africa, we seek to reindustrialize.
Yeah.
We had it, we lost it, we're down to maybe 12-13% of GDP, which is the global average 18, manufacturing value add to GDP. So we're below the global average quite significantly. The outperformers, the Thailands, the South Koreas, the Austrias, the Japans, the Germanys would be typically 20-25% plus.
Yeah.
So we have a long way to go to recapture that. Is it even possible to do so? I think, as I alluded to, it's, I think the industrialization story, capital, I'm afraid, is not interested in mass employment and low-cost manufacturing jobs. That's so arguably 19th century. It was China in the 80s, the early 90s. It's Ethiopia today. The South African economy has moved on. And I think we have these discussions, these policy, what is possible through policy? Conversations in South Africa, not quite recognizing that perhaps the world has moved on, and so we need to as well.
And that's interesting, because I was going to ask you if we get the industrialization right, if the other two, so the employment and the productivity, then flow naturally from.
Well, this is the elusive trinity. I'm not sure we actually can. I mean, again, we talk about Industry 4.0, which is fantastic, but it's not great for job creation. It's great for value add. It's not good for job creation. And we have this structural unemployment in our country, which is economically, politically, socially, morally unacceptable. We have to get our act together. We have to come together as a country ultimately and sort this out. Otherwise, the consequences, well, will be dire.
We'll leave it there. Thanks for your time. Today, Managing Director for Emerging Markets in Africa at Deloitte. That's Dr. Martyn Davies.